what we're doing now is we are creating like, let's just say like clickbaity, like newspaper type style, like headlines that when the 2026 season is, or going into the 2025 season, 2026, going into the 2025 season, this is what people are going to be talking about. I took my liberty. Do you want me to go first? Do you want to go first?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I took the liberty upon myself to act like I am in week 7 of the NFL season.
Okay.
So just bear with me. But to lay it out, the Eagles title defense. Let me just overview the Sirianni tenure. Year 1, 9-8. Year 2, this is a special tenure for Noah. Year 2, 14-3. Year 3, 11-6. That is the season of where halfway through
the backside from hell.
Yeah, where they just fell off of a cliff, and I still don't really understand what happened that year. Year 4, 14-3, Super Bowl champions. Awesome season, awesome postseason run. Amazing to watch. Year 5, week 7, the newspapers come out. Cracks in the nest. Is the dynasty already dead? There's a few reasons why I think this is going to happen, and I'm not just doing this to rile you up. There are
You're trying to bring me back to even after saying nice things about Penn State, about Drew Aller.
there are trends that I'm kind of going off of when I'm going to be talking about the Eagles. Why do I think that this is going to happen? One, the Philly media is a house of cards and scared. So if anything starts to go wrong, they are going to be heavily criticized. And
red button is pressed immediately.
I wish I would have Googled this and searched more. It feels like every single time a coach is given an extension over the last few years, something goes wrong and they get fired. I think infamously back to the Cliff Kingsbury extension in Arizona, and he was gone in that next season. So let me give you reasons why I think that the Eagles are going to I don't think the Eagles are going to fall off of a cliff, but I think that they're going to round back into form a little bit. And these are some reasons why. I think they handle the Giants this year. That's not really a problem in my head. If they lose to the Giants 1 week, I mean, something brutally went wrong. I think that
like, Dorian, Thompson Robinson was starting a game.
Yeah. I think that the Commanders are going to be better this season, and they were already good last year. And I think that that's a series that will probably get split for the time being. Just based off of whenever those two teams are going to go against each other, it's going to be more competitive than it has been in the last 5 years, let's say. 2, the Cowboys are going to be a lot better this season. They're going to actually have healthy bodies on their squad and roll out a competent team. And that's always a series that gets split between the Eagles and the Cowboys historically forever. Another thing, the offensive coordinator changed, losing Kellen Moore. First off, Kellen Moore, he's got to be sitting in New Orleans right now crying, because that move still makes absolutely zero sense to me. When Sirianni said after they won the Super Bowl, Kellen Moore, let's run this back, Kellen Moore should have said yes, sir, because him going to New Orleans does nothing for his career. The Eagles, they probably made an effort to keep him, and it sounds like it just wasn't possible, but what an L for Kellen Moore. And I want you to comment on that real quick.
I mean, Kellen Moore, we talk about this all the time, that if you get an opportunity to be a head coach in the NFL, it's very hard to pass up. Kellen Moore has had multiple opportunities to become a head coach in the NFL, but I don't understand why this Saints job was the one that made him finally put his chips in. What about New Orleans made you say, all right, yeah, let me just go attach my name to Derek Carr prior to him retiring? Now Tyler Shuck or Spencer Rattler, whoever else is in that quarterback room, why is that the spot that finally he was like, yeah, I want to go there? He had the opportunity to be the Chargers coach and pin his name to Justin Herbert and be in a phenomenal spot for potentially the rest of his NFL career. So I don't understand. I feel like it was an opportunity that he could have easily passed up. And if he sticks around in Philadelphia, he probably gets a better job in a better situation the following season if he really wants to leave.
Yeah, nothing would have changed. I mean, nothing. His name doesn't become any less hot staying in Philly.
It's equally as hot this year as it would have been last year.
What they did is they went and hired Kevin Patalo, I think that's how you say his last name, as their OC. He's been with the team since 2021 as a passing game coordinator. History revised is that last time they made those internal hires for OC, it went all-time bad. Horrible. And you are telling me that you're giving somebody the job as the passing game coordinator, who was the passing game coordinator, the OC. I'm not impressed with the Philadelphia Eagles passing game in any way, shape, or form. The wide screens where like it's literally just like a bubble screen and throw, and then like go routes. Like I don't think that the Eagles run like a sophisticated passing game by any stretch of the imagination. And it could mean nothing, but I'm also grasping at edges here and saying like this could go badly.
Yeah, I think it could too. I mean, you're correct with the way that this has gone. The last time the Eagles hired offensive talent internally, it went really, really badly.
Yeah.
So, and this just is the theme for Jalen and that offense is it's going to be, and that's just how it is when you're a good team. Is other teams want your coaches. So like. At this point, it's like not even an excuse. You just have to figure out a way around it and figure out a way to put out a competent offense. But on the flip side, like you still have Saquon Barkley and one of the best offensive lines in football, and you won a Super Bowl with that. And we saw how low numbers were on their passing offense last season. Like that could ultimately not necessarily matter as much.
Yeah, and you, as everything happens, there's positive regression and negative regression. You would have to think that the Eagles might have to pass more this upcoming season.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, now I'm just looking at like what made this Eagles team so great last season. Multiple things, but something that really stuck out during that postseason run was the defense, and they lost a lot of key guys: Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who is now going to be replaced by a rookie, second-round rookie. And then they lose Darius Slay. And as of now, on their depth chart is Kale Ringo, who I don't really love. At a point where it felt like they finally got this secondary and everything.
Isaiah Rodgers, too. They lost
Isaiah Rodgers. They got this secondary fixed. It feels like even with Cooper DeJean, even with Quintanamo Bay Mitchell, I don't know, I'm saying it wrong, but even with those guys who played well above expectations for them last year and crushed it, it feels like right now that one, they lost depth on the defensive line, and they lost key guys in the secondary, and they're going to have guys step up. And I think it's a lot to ask a rookie to step in and be your starting safety. And like I said, I'm not a big Kile Ringo guy. He doesn't really do it for me. And to see him as like a starter on your depth chart, like has to worry you at least a little bit. So I think that losing these key guys on the defense on the trenches and in the secondary, I think that the genetic makeup of this defense could look a little different than what it did last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you have that much turnover on a defense or on an offense, there is reason for concern. I think it's important though that they finally will have a consistent defensive coordinator in the building in Vic Fangio for however many more years. But I think at the end of the day, like their core group of guys are still there. Like I love the fact that they've got Quignon. They still have Reed Blankenship, who was fine, but a guy that's familiar with the defense, kind of a leader on the backside. They still have the best defensive tackle in the NFL, in Jalen Carter, and then they still have Jordan Davis, who they did just pick up his 5th year. Don't know if he's going to be back after this season, but we can worry about that later. I know he hasn't been quite what he was expected as far as like overall defensive tackle, but he's been pretty good overall. Not nearly, like I said, what he should have been, but still a solid defensive tackle next to Jalen Carter.
Yeah, I just think that a lot of
so many replacements.
I think a lot of their success too is, and if you look back 3 seasons ago when they went on to that Super Bowl run when they lost the Chiefs, they were really great at getting pressure on the quarterback and getting a ton of sacks. And obviously that's dropped off year after year, and just kind of makes you now, like, you look at their edges and they don't really have much talent on the edge for rushing the passer. They obviously have Jalen Carter, who's a great player. And I just think that that's something that should keep noted going into the season, is their diminished pass rush on the edges. The last thing that I'm going to dive into, and then you can comment on it, and then you can give your storylines as well, is this team is extremely top heavy on offense as well. Something that I have pointed out to you a few times, I'm probably going to keep bringing it up as we do this preview, is if Saquon Barkley, who has historically missed a ton of football games in his career, and last year he played the entire season, if he goes down, this running back room is one of the worst in the entire NFL. Same thing with obviously they have Devontae Smith and AJ Brown. It seems like AJ Brown's been relatively healthy the entire time, but over like at least he misses a few games every single season. So this top heavy offense makes me a little worried. I think that there are guys that can step up. Like if AJ Brown goes down, I have no questions in my mind that Devontae Smith will be able to perform. So I like some spots where if it does happen, there's guys that can step up, and obviously they have ways to complement. Like if a receiver goes down, they can go more run heavy. If Saquon Barkley goes down, they have two of the best wide receiver. They are probably the best wide receiver duo in the NFL. And I think that as long as the integrity of this team, who was relatively healthy the entire way through all last season, if they just like hypothetically experience a year from hell, I think things can get a little dicey. I know that people are probably going to say, why aren't you bringing up the offensive line? The Eagles have absolutely no reason to ever talk negatively about their offensive line. They could get 5 new guys along the front, and I would say that they would be good. So I have nothing to say about who they brought in. I have nothing to say about Stoutland being able to coach them up. That offensive line is going to be good no matter what. And if you don't agree with that, you're wrong, respectfully.
Yeah, I think there is certainly some validity to the top heaviness of this team. But I mean, at this point, that is just how it's going to be made. Like they're going to have their best players taking up a lot of the cap space, and they're going to have to rely on these younger guys and 1 year like prove it deal guys to come in and prove it and or step up if you're a rookie. So like I understand how people might not necessarily love the fact that that's how this team is built, because you are relying on multiple rookies to step up every season or 1 year guys to pan out every year. But at the end of the day, I still think you have a really good quarterback in Jalen Hurts. You still have Saquon Barkley. You still have 2 of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Like, and then on top of that, you have a great offensive line. I think considering injuries is certainly fair because it will ultimately happen. Knock on wood. But
yeah, of course,
I think
deep runs in the last
also,
year. Yeah,
deep runs play a part of it too.
Yeah.
Then the more you play, the more opportunities you put yourself out there for an injury.
And this is like I said, this is
and you have a little bit
5.
shorter of a off season when you are playing into the Super Bowl.
And this is year 5 of them playing deep into off seasons and like being a really good football team. Like this isn't new for them. So it's just, like I said, history like of teams who have gone this far at some point, like just wheels start falling off a little bit. But yeah, we're in year 5 of the Sirianni era. And I think that if you were to put every single Philadelphia Eagles fan on a lie detector test, they would be like, yeah, I don't know if he's a good coach. And I just think that at some point could potentially matter. And I don't know if it's this year. I don't know if it's 3 years from now, but it's always a lingering thought in my head when I think about the Philadelphia Eagles is the validity and how good of a coach is Nick Sirianni, regardless of his success that he's had in the NFL so far. Is it fair? I don't know. Probably not. I mean, he's more successful than I'll ever be. But like I said, if you put every Philadelphia Eagles fan on a lie detector and ask them to ask it truthfully, I think that they would say that they have some hesitancies about Nick Sirianni.
Yeah, I think it would be probably like 70-30. Like 30%.
I mean, shit. Through 5 weeks of the season last year, his head was on the chopping block.
His hair was on the chopping block.
Literally, he showed up with a shaved head.
But that was a generational crash out that led to a Super Bowl.
It did, but still,
listen. If all it takes is him to shave his head to win a Super Bowl, that's fine with me.
Completely agree. All right, perfect.
And if him shaving his head is what rallied that locker room and got all of those guys to lock it the hell in,
that's sad.
That is sad, but also feels like
that's sad.
I feel like that's not a lot to ask.
Oh, that's hilarious. So that is like I said, pretending week 5 of the NFL season. That's my newspaper clipping that I think that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to struggle going into the season.
White clouds blowing out.